From a farming point of view, the past year was filled with great uncertainty. But at some point, decisions have to be made. Steps must be taken to create a firm new footprint for farming, for food production.
Ten opsigte van die politiek was dit vir ons 'n relatief moeilike jaar. Klomp aanslagte wat ons gehad het, onteiening sonder vergoeding wat uitgekom het in verskeie ander kritiek wat ons as landbou ervaar het deur die jaar, wat dit vir ons 'n moeilike en 'n uitdagende jaar gemaak het. Die weerstoestande wat ons die afgelope jaar ervaar het, was baie uiteenlopend geweest. Ons het gebiede gehad wat tot 'n mate oormatig nat was en dan het ons ander gebiede gehad wat uiters droog is.
Although certain areas managed to produce good yields despite the erratic weather, high global supplies caused prices to plummet.
Our 2018 calendar year was a very emotional, intense year, and we had to dig deep to find new solutions and to kickstart new things to try and resolve some of these issues, specifically to the grain sector. In the land reform debate, the big argument for us was, how do we do it in a sustainable way? What can we do to make sure that those farmers who get a new farm actually get a title deed? Because we've seen there's a lot of farmers that receive a farm but not title deed. And the second thing is obviously we know how to produce food as farmers, and we have to show what is needed in terms of the recipe. How can we do land reform to maintain our food security status? Obviously, we bring to the table some experience of how we have achieved in terms of developing farmers and making sure that they get to a commercial status. And those practical stuff, not theory, is what we brought to the table and argue in this debate.
Vir ons is dit baie belangrik geweest dat hierdie proses reg bestuur word. Ons was relatief van die begin af betrokke in die proses geweest. Aanvanklik in Maart maand met 'n In-Transformation Initiative rond Indaba. En so was ons deur die hele proses baie aktief. Ons was in die parlement geweest, daar voorlegging gemaak. Die publieke verhore het ons bygewoon in Pretoria. Aan die einde van die dag het ons baie goeie gesprekke gehad met die regerende party, eers die adjunkpresident wat na ons uitgereik het, en daarna die Bella konferensie. Ons was deel van daai prosesse geweest en dit was eintlik 'n baie goeie ervaring vir ons. Ons het die resultate gesien daarna ten opsigte van die veranderings wat in die onteieningswetontwerp voorgestel is, wat eintlik vir ons relatief gemaklik is. Ons het 'n paar vrae daaroor, maar dis 'n baie beter bedeling as waar ons begin het met die onsekerheid en alles wat daarmee gepaard gegaan het.
Through all of this, Grain SA did not lose focus of the many other factors impacting on the sustainability of grain and oilseed production.
The maize industry has had a terrible drought year in 16. We had 2 good crops but very low prices, so the maize industry is really under pressure in terms of profitability. And I think farmers in this past years have started to look at what sort of yield level am I making the most profit, because profit eventually is what is paying the bills and not necessarily the highest yield.
Market expansion is another decisive factor in economically viable production.
Ons kyk beide binnelands en buitelands na alternatiewe markte vir families. In die buiteland het ons spesifiek met Iran gesels om te probeer kyk hoe kan ons mielies uitgevoer kry, en ons het dit reg gekry om 'n klomp mielies Vietnam toe uit te voer. Ons is tans ook besig met China rondom mielies en sojabone, juis om 'n alternatief te skep in uitvoerjare sodat ons genoeg mielies kan uitvoer en ander produkte ook, sodat ons kan bly produseer in die land.
As a contender in the global soya market, access to the latest seed technology is vital for local farmers to remain competitive.
Ons het vir jaar baie ernstig gedryf om die tegnologie en teelingheffing op sojabone ingestel te kry. Die belangrikheid daarvan is toegang tot nuwe tegnologie. Ons moet kan meeding internasionaal, en ons weet in Suid-Afrika het ons nie optimale produksietoestande soos daar in groot dele in die wêreld is nie. So om te kan meeding moet ons die beste tegnologie in tyd in Suid-Afrika kan inkry.
In terms of winter cereals, 2018 saw years of negotiations result in good news for farmers.
The winter cereal industry, especially the wheat, was under a lot of pressure, and about 4 years ago we started with a turnaround strategy. But during 2018 we had 2 big breakthroughs. We have changed the price differentials between the different grades, And towards the end of last year, we also achieved a big success in terms of changing the grading regulations to relax it a little bit so that we can compete with the Russian wheat that we're importing and to give farmers a premium when they produce a top grade wheat. And that, I think, would put a lot of money back into the farmers' pockets, and we have to take our hats off to everybody who, show endurance and patience, and also the concessions that was made in the market.
In addition, Grain SA managed to negotiate the abolishment of the 10% import tariff on canola seed. The organization's continuous monitoring of input cost and quality included an application for the removal of the 20% import tariff on certain tractor tires. Extensive input was also given on the government's proposed new diesel rebate system. In terms of industry information, Grain SA stepped in to ensure integrity and transparency of fundamental national systems.
Die oeskattingsproses is vir ons uiters belangrik, die integriteit daarvan en die data wat ons daaruit verkry. Toe daar druk kom rondom befondsing spesifiek van sekere gedeeltes van die oeskatting, die hektareskatting, het ons baie vinnig ingetree om juis hierdie probleem rondom befondsing op te los. Ons het dit baie vinnig reg gekry en die integriteit is beskerm.
Likewise, the issue around import and export information was successfully tackled.
Grain SA can tick a big box here that we've achieved that. That was a thing that the farmers asked us to do, and through the negotiations we got the minister eventually to sign off on it, and now SAGIS is declaring these numbers on a weekly basis, what is intended to be imported and exported, and it will help the market to form better pricing.
Ons het baie konsortiums gaan stig, gaan kyk wie is die beste persone om spesifieke navorsing vir ons te doen en waar kan ons dit die mees ekonomies doen. So ons het befondsing van buite af gaan soek en daai befondsing binne konsortiums geplaas juis om navorsing te bevorder. Ons het gewasverbetering, gewasbeskerming is twee van ons hooffokusareas. Die biosekuriteit van ons land is baie belangrik, klimaatsverandering en dan bewaringsbewerking is ons 5 fokuspunte wat navorsing betref.
To assist farmers with the more immediate needs caused by extreme climatic conditions, accessible insurance backing options are being negotiated.
When we look at how do we address the drought and the dry conditions specifically, one can help a cattle farmer with some feed and fodder and things like that, but for a grain farmer, you need money to pay your bills. So the one thing that we have identified in the plan that we presented to government is to get a crop insurance or a subsidy for crop insurance so that more farmers can actually access the crop insurance. And if we can get something like that in place, it will mitigate some of the risk of this climate change. And it will at least allow a farmer to maybe plant the next season if he was hit hard by the drought.
Great effort also goes into solving the unique challenges facing developing farmers. This includes opening up avenues for financing.
With the smaller farmers, there's a lot of partners that is participating. Even government is coming in from the job fund side on a rand for rand basis. Where there's bigger money needed for the bigger farmers, where they don't have title deed, this is where we got stuck. So in that regard, we get some funds from government on to recapitalize. It is a small number of farmers. We can't help a general group of people, but we have engaged with the commercial banks, very difficult with the Credit Act to actually help these farmers. We've engaged with AB InBev. They are assisting us now, but we need to develop a new mechanism for South Africa. And this is part of the agricultural plan that we've presented to the President.
Ten midde van al die uitdagings wat ons gehad het vir jaar, het ons ook baie goed presteer ten opsigte van finansies. Ons het 'n groot verlies omgekeer in 'n wins. En sodoende kan ons ook die volhoubaarheid van die organisasie bevestig. Ons het ten opsigte van audit, 'n skoon audit weer eens vir jaar. Ons werk met publieke fondse en dis vir ons uiters belangrik en daarop is ons baie trots.
Through effective management and commercially successful events such as NAMFO, Grain SA is set to continue growing its base as the independent voice of the South African grain farmer.
The profitability of the sector is under severe stress. But towards the end of last year, we have engaged at a very high political level with government, and they have actually asked our assistance to say what is needed to get the economy kickstart. And we sat together as private sector, agriculture was part of that, and we presented plans to get the growth going. And that for me is the positive outlook for 2019. Although I can't say it on the weather, I think there's a new form of trust being built between private sector and government, and I think that will help us to get South Africa going again.
It all starts on the land, where resilience reflects in leaps of faith, in rays of hope, to shine a light on the footsteps of farming.